All right, we just got a few seconds before the bottom of the hour break, but let's talk about what we're going to talk about for the rest of the show, and that is what's going on in the government of Roanoke County. Now, Al, you're a first-time supervisor in Roanoke County, and just real quick in a few seconds, what did you want to accomplish going into the Board of Supervisors?
Everybody should have this experience in life, really. Get behind the curtain. I always look at it as you're on this side of the curtain. Now you have a chance to get behind the curtain and actually see what's going on. And I think it's a very eye-opening experience, but not very difficult. And I will share some things. I think a lot of people throw up their hands, oh, this is the way our government's going. But you know what? It's really not that difficult to take it back. It really isn't. And I like it at a small level because we're, 90,000 people in Roanoke County. It's relatively small enough where you can actually see what's happening. State and federal levels, the things go so fast. But that's very interesting.
All right, we'll be back with Al, Chip, and me, Greg, with News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
This is News Guardians. News Guardians with Greg Aldridge and Chip Tarbutton on WFJX Fox Radio 910.
And we're back. As always, if you'd like to read the stories we're talking about this morning, you can go to newsguardians.com. And the story that we're going to talk about with Al Bedrosian this morning is also posted there. And the email that he sent out with all the information we're discussing is there in its entirety. So if you're interested, go to newsguardians.com. You can take a look at that and listen, because we're gonna delve into it right now.
Let me make a point, too. As a supervisor, what I've been doing is right after the meetings, and the meetings are every other Tuesday. So like today, there's a meeting, a Roanoke County Supervisor meeting at 3 o'clock, and then there's actually going to be a 6 o'clock session. And then 2 Tuesdays from now, so you skip one Tuesday, and the next Tuesday, there's another Board of Supervisor meeting, and that's a 3 o'clock meeting, and I think a 7 o'clock meeting. What I do is I try to encapsulate, hey, what happened? Here's a little summary of what happened and what we're looking forward in the next meeting. And I send that out to anybody that wants it. I've got an email list, and I send it out and say, hey, here it is.
So how does somebody get on your email list?
Well, they can always, my campaign email, which is probably the best one to do, was Bedrosian for Supervisor. So BEDROSIAN, the number 4, supervisor at cox.net. That's probably best. That's kind of my personal one on this side of the aisle. So you send it to me, and I'll put you on the list, and then you'll be updated. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I could care less. Really, it's to get you the information, and let's have the dialogue about government and the best way to run it. Yeah.
Well, in the email talks about a lot of issues. So one of the, actually I got a message from one of our listeners earlier talking about sort of the numbers, and I mean the numbers here. I mean, they're pretty much just straight from the budget, right?
Correct. Here's government in a nutshell. Is Roanoke County at this point in time is $182 million in debt. We have been a little bit higher in debt before, and we do pay the payments on the debt, just like you would on if you bought something on a credit card or you have a mortgage or whatever. You pay, and it slowly goes down. But then we just continue to add the next debt item on top of it, which has always been my issue, is that we got to get rid of this debt. My feeling about debt is that debt should be maybe used in an emergency situation, and then it needs to be paid off quickly. Okay, so even in my own life, I've paid off my house. I am out of debt. But, we had to get a car for my wife. So let's get something. I don't have $17,000, $18,000 to get. So I do it on my equity line, and then I pay it quickly. So I'm okay with that. So, some people say, oh, well, you've got to have some kind of debt. Well, I don't think so, but that should just be used as an exception. We, as government in Roanoke County, are using it as the everyday way to acquire things is through debt, and I think that becomes a problem.
Well, and many of those things, it's arguable as to whether they should have acquired them in the first place.
I agree.
I mean, building a water slide is not an emergency that the city needed.
Right. Well, the whole Green Ridge complex, the sports complex, and I was vocal on this, is that is not the role of government. As nice as it is, as whatever it is, the role of government is not to build gyms and gymnasiums. That's the private sector, and you could actually say that hurts Roanoke County because you have gyms. I belong to Gold's Gym. They are competing now with a government entity, which is unfair because that government entity is also undercutting the price, the real price of what it is to offer that service.
And it's unfair because that government entity can use force to make the citizens of Roanoke County pay for that gym.
And they are using force, because here's the deal. Everybody talks about that, the Green Ridge, and the word has always been that, well, no, but the Green Ridge Center, it's paying for itself. half truth, half false. The fact is that the operating expenses are taken care of by the dues. But the building itself, $30 million.
And the service of the debt.
Has been put on the backs of taxpayers. So as a Roanoke County citizen, I'm paying for that gym.
How, and think about it, how is it fair that a private gym like Gold's Gym should be set up in business and pays their taxes?
Right.
It follows the rules. It should be having to compete with what is essentially a business owned by Roanoke County that they have the ability to force the citizens to help them cover the costs of.
You just don't care about the health of the citizens of Roanoke County, you guys. I'm really disappointed in you.
Yeah, that's how the conversation is always trained. And people always say, well, Al, it's a beautiful place. And there are a lot of people that I know that are conservative, that are for limited government, that go there. See, this is the problem that it also causes is once you create it, it is sitting there as a temptation. And the problem is, too, is that if you don't go and it starts losing money, it's a worse situation. So they kind of have you a little bit trapped once it's done.
Well, and they blame you. If you didn't go and it failed even worse than it's failing now, then the Roanoke Times would write all these stories about how horrible the citizens of Roanoke County are for not supporting their own gym.
We built you this beautiful place and you don't even go.
It wouldn't be the fault of the brainiacs who had it built. It's the fault of the citizens for not utilizing it. So I guess maybe the solution to this is that they need to pass a law in Roanoke County that says you have to go use it, and if you don't, the cops will show up and arrest you. That's the way we do everything else.
We have to be healthy. I mean, we do have government mandated health care now, so
it probably will be part of an Obama package soon that you'll probably get a discount to go. Maybe they're going to make it successful. Here's the thing too, though. I do blame also the citizens of Roanoke County. We have got to step it up. I think people start throwing up their hands so much in this government deal because they look at the federal government and they look at the state government and they say, I can't do anything about it. The fact is, once you give up, it's over. And I just make this point. The way I look at government right now is you have elected officials, you have people that are in government, and this is from a local perspective. You have the Roanoke County Administration, which has about 900 employees. They're the ones that run government, the heads of departments and whatever. Then you have us, 5 supervisors that actually vote yes to appropriate money to do the things that the department wants. The missing link is the people of Roanoke County. If we're just having us elected officials and the County of Roanoke administration, it's not going to work. Because what happens is they start colluding together for big government. It's just the way it happens. It happens on the federal level like that, it happens on the state level. The people really have got to be the ones that say no. We say no to that. We're going to show up 100, 200 people at the meetings and look you straight in the eye and say, no, do not spend any more money. But if the people don't do that, I'm telling you, it's a lost cause. Personally, I will always lose 4-1 or 3-2.
You're like the Ron Paul of the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors.
Well, and I wanted to ask a question about this. And mind you, I'm going to come at this as sort of as a devil's advocate here. So why do you hate children, Al? I just want you to feel like you're talking to a regular press person, because you do spend a good deal of time in this email talking about this situation with the schools. And in all seriousness, you raised some really good points about the budget around the school. Can you just kind of elaborate on some of that?
Yeah, well, the way I turn it around is I say, what are we doing to our children, first of all, when we tell them that, if you don't have the money, go do it anyway. Just spend it, and in fact, go to the hilt and spend as much money as possible and get yourself into debt. That's really a great thing to show our children. I think we're really teaching our children to be very irresponsible and to have this I want it now attitude all the time. This is going to cause us a lot of harm. This thing that's going on in Glenver, and it's not about Glenver High School necessarily. It could be about any high school in Roanoke County. It's just that Glenver is now up for renovations and fixing it. I don't have any problem because our community, we homeschool our children, okay? I believe in a godly, biblical education for our children. But we as a community have decided to provide public education. Okay, got it. I'm okay. But since we're going to provide public education, do we have to make it so expensive that it puts us into debt forever? The Glenver situation is going to be roughly 20, 25 million. I don't know, that number is going to end up. And then plus the interest, and I put it in the email, it's going to be about $35 million for renovation of a school. I mean, I tell people, I live in a nice house in a community about 50-something houses on 65 acres of land. Houses roughly average about $300,000. My whole neighborhood of 52 homes with 65 acres of land is $15 million. Why does a school, one high school, that has 600 children have to be costing us $35 million?
And you're not even talking about building it. You're just talking about renovation. This isn't
now,
buying land and building a new building.
Right. The deal with the renovation is, and I sat in this meeting, is that you have all these A&E guys come in and tell you, okay, we did the study. Now, these are the federal regulations and state regulations now that we have to comply with since we're doing this renovation. Okay, we have to bust out these walls. So all this stuff gets added on to where the simple renovation now becomes this huge project. And this is another point to make, is that, like the Vinton Library, and we're right here basically in Vinton, so I may get a lot of hate mail on this one, but the Vinton Library, I asked in my first meeting to understand how the Vinton Library became such a high priority project. It started off as a $1 million renovation project. I have no problem with, hey, the building needs some paint, it needs this, it needs that, $1 million. You know what it is today? $10 million. In fact, it's not only a renovation project, we're tearing down this building and we're going to buy a new piece of land and we're building a new library. So once you open the door, and this is a great lesson for me to learn, which is why I shut down anything right from the beginning. Once you say, yeah, do the study, it's over. It could be a $5,000 study you're going to do. This project will end up being $1 million. Because once you open the door, they will find so many things, and everybody jumps on board to support it because it's to the benefit of everybody. County government now has a new job to do. The supervisors look great. They get their name posted on the building. It's bad news.
Through the wonders of today's instant communications, we're getting some Facebook messages, and let me read one of these to you that just came through. It says, I turned into the show late. Who is this fantastic person talking, and how can we get one in Salem?
Hey, thanks, Mom. I really appreciate my mom Facebooking me there. Okay. No.
Now, the letter you sent out talks about schools. It talks about and one of the things specifically with the schools is $10,000 is what it looks like is budgeted per student for education in the county.
I just basically took the number that was allocated, and we're working on a new formula to, because county gets all the money, and then we create a formula where we then transfer money to the schools. A lot of people think that whatever happens, like the school bus driver is not going to, pick up the kids, is a Roanoke County administration fault. It's a school board. They make their own decisions about benefits and all that. So we give them money. The money, when we give it to the schools, you divide that by the amount of children in the public schools, which is, by the way, decreasing and will continue to decrease. The population of young people is going down because people just aren't having children anymore. So that number is going to continue to decline.
Why are we doing so much to expand schools and classrooms if we have fewer students that are going to be utilizing them?
If the money is there, here's the deal. When the money is allocated and given, it will be spent. So you got $10,000. When I did the division, you got $10,000 a child. My thing is, I'm a math guy. I love numbers. So I take the $10,000. I say, give me a classroom, an average classroom in Roanoke County, 20 children. That classroom now costs $200,000. Okay, what is $200,000 being spent on? Well, the teacher makes about $50,000. This is also another thing that everybody thinks the teachers don't make a whole lot of money. The average teacher salary is about $50,000. Not bad. 10 months. I mean, they're physically working 10 months out of the year. Not a bad salary. But you take that $50,000. I know I'll get a lot of comments on that from teachers, but here's the deal. You take the $50,000, you remove that from the $200,000. Okay, what are we spending $150,000 on in that classroom if it's not the teacher? What is it? And the point I make there, too, is that only about 55% of the employees in Roanoke County school system are teachers. The rest are these instructional specialists, superintendent, blah, 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 all the support staff around education. And I think that's why this cost gets so high.
There are private schools in our area, one of which I know for a fact provides, I think, what is the most superior education that is offered in our entire area, and they can do it for $7,000.
Which school is that?
Faith Christian Academy.
Faith Christian, okay.
They can do it for $7,000 a year and be able to service the debt on a brand new building, which is almost paid off in the project. Imagine what they'll be able to charge to educate these kids once they're not paying for the building that they had to build.
Yep.
We have to have an infrastructure, Greg, and you have to take care of people in buses, and you got to have virtual desktops, and because it's always funny that education seems to have suffered but we had old books and chalkboards, and I mean, I'm a tech guy, but
the best educated people in our civilization were educated before computers existed and before we spent untold thousands of dollars educating each child. The best education was gotten when teachers taught, when facts were learned, and they wrote things with chalk. I mean,
I'll put a plug in for homeschooling, because really the best education was homeschooled education when we first started this nation. And I'll tell you, the funny thing, I always marvel at it, because I spend about $1,400 a year for homeschool. And we've got, you divide that up now, we've got 3 children. So we're going for $500 a piece. So to me, all this other stuff, yeah, the technology, and we're both technology guys. I mean, I work for Xerox. The reality is technology should be driving down the cost of education, not bringing it up. And I get people saying, oh, well, all this technology, we got, whoa. How hard is it to wire an old building? It's easy. I live in a 20-year-old house. We're wireless, right? We can print from anywhere we do. Guys, they act like you have to tear down the whole building in order to wire a house.
Well, they do if they want to charge an exorbitant amount for the construction.
Yeah.
We got to take a break before we go. The big crime here is that you're educating your own children, yet you still have to pay for a school system you're not using. And I'm in that same boat. I'm paying to educate children out of my own pocket, yet I'm still forced by government to pay for schools that I can't utilize.
Right.
I mean, that's criminal. That's entirely more criminal than the fact I didn't wear a seatbelt yesterday.
You're just very selfish, Greg.
No, I'm not selfish, because if I weren't being robbed blind by the government, I would have the resources to put into my community to help people directly.
Right.
That's the real crime, is that government is stealing our ability to help people ourselves and then telling us we're selfish if we won't let them point a gun at us so that they can do it for us.
There is a better way to do this, and when we come back, maybe there is a better way to make all of this work so that we're all happy. And let's talk about freedom and liberty.
Oh, I want to be happy.
Yes,
I want to be happy so
Thank you,
bad.
Al, for calming him down.
That's what I'm here for.
I was about ready to shock him with the headphones.
You're listening to News Guardians. If you'd like to read the information that Al's talking about with us this morning, you can find that at newsguardians.com. We'll be right back on Fox Radio 910.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
I'm the last person that you want to put in charge of something, because, I'm troublemaker numero uno.
Well, if the goal is to cause trouble, you're the best person to have in charge then.
Well, if there's a group out there that wants to cause trouble, if that's your mission statement, give me a call. 397-1051. I'm exemplary in that particular role.
Greg will channel his inner 12-year-old and cause trouble for you. We still have Al Bedrosian from the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors here. So, Al, he's eager to jump in here and talk. Well,
I want to make a comment, because this is what is. I want to make sure that everybody realizes that we can't give up on this thing. Okay, we really can't, because the alternative is really bad. So the reality is, we live in a great country. We live in a great county. There's good stuff out here. We just need to watch how money is spent, and we need to do it. The sad thing may be that the way the county spends money may be the way that a lot of citizens spend money. And the reality is, when you're living your life like that, then you don't object to somebody else doing that. I have become...
You hit the nail on the head. The issue is the people.
People, how we're doing it.
Yeah.
So see, as I've become more conscious about things like debt and spending, and not because I want to be stingy, but because I want to have freedom. I want to have liberty, and you have that without being under debt and all that. So when I start living my life that way, I then get very upset that somebody else is taking my money and spending it in a foolish way, and that's what kind of energizes me. I will make a point. You'll always hear people talk about a balanced budget, and Roanoke County does have, quote-unquote, a balanced budget. So does the state of Virginia, a balanced budget. That is very deceiving, and I want to make sure everybody understands this concept. Is balanced budget just means you're able to pay your monthly bills. So if you were at home and you had a $20,000 credit card bill and you just kept putting things on a credit card, but because of your job you're able to pay that bill every month, I don't look at that as balancing your budget at home. I look at that going into debt spending, which is exactly what we do at all levels of government. So don't be deceived. The county will say it, the state will say it, we balanced the budget. All that means is they found a way either to tax people more, whatever, to get the money in order to make those monthly payments. That's all it means. It doesn't mean good spending. The other thing that it doesn't mean, we have a AA rating, I think, in the county. And they brought this up at the last meeting. Al, how can you talk like this? We have such a great rating. I said, what rating does the United States government have? The United States government also has a AA rating. With $17 trillion worth of debt, we have a AA rating. So those ratings, all they stand for is that the person with the debt is paying it every month. Well, big whoop. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of us.
And the Fed has something special involved in their debt rating, which is there are assets to balance the $17 trillion in debt. When we can't pay that debt, you know how that debt's going to be paid? It's going to be paid out of the ground with our oil and our coal and our timber and our land. You don't think the Chinese aren't worried about whether we pay them back in worthless American dollars. They have their eyeballs on our country as payment for the debt we have to them.
And last I checked, Roanoke City may not have the same resources that the federal government does.
If only they'd have gotten a wind farm, they'd have something to trade.
One last thing, and I want to make this point too, is that, you know, Roanoke County, with the debt that we have, we pay $8 million of interest payments. This is very important too. $8 million a year goes
That's
to the
interest?
wind. That is interest payments alone. And, you know, people dispute this. Even on the board, they're disputing, oh, no, we've got blah, blah, blah. They talk about, guys, you have $182 million worth of debt. You pay roughly 4% or so interest. Do the math. It turns out to roughly about $8 million of interest a year. No matter which way you want to spin it, $8 million. This is interest payments. This is stuff that you could maybe, if you didn't have this debt, that money could be used for something. But instead, it blows in the wind as interest payments.
Or, hey, here's a novel idea. Maybe you could give that money back to the people that you stole it from in the first place.
Amen.
Does it ever make you wonder, whenever we keep going through these budget crises at the state level in Virginia, and we did one a couple years ago, we did one 7 years ago, and they go absolutely nuts, and we have to raise taxes because we have a crisis. And then the next year we find out there's a surplus. Not one person ever says, hey, we got this. They talk about, well, now we can use this money for this, and we can buy this, and we can spend this money here. Not one person, not one journalist who wants to win an award pops up and says, hey, I got a novel idea. Why don't we give that money back? Especially since we lied to people about the crisis to steal the money in the first place.
Greg, you know why? It's because it's against everybody's interest to do that. I will tell you one thing that was shocking. Well, not shocking to me. I guess I kind of knew it. I've been talking about lowering the taxes. Okay, we are at 1.09 for real estate. That means for every $100 worth of real estate, you pay $1.09. Well, I said, hey, I want to reduce it. Start reducing it a couple pennies every year, and let's just get this thing down over time. Every penny that you reduce the real estate tax rate, the county says, and this is the issues I have, they say we're going to lose $800,000. See, in my mind, I look at it, when you reduce it, you infuse back into the economy of Roanoke County $800,000.
Oh, yeah. They're Keynesians. They don't understand.
I know.
Cut you off.
It is.
We got
Keynesian
10
philosophy, which is
seconds.
bad news.
Thanks for coming in.
You got it.
Al Bedrosian, first-time supervisor for Roanoke County. Tonight's the meeting. Be there.
Yep.